Guys, welcome back to Quick Notes with Chris. Today we're going to be talking about the book, The Business of the 21st Century. It's a book by Robert Kiyosaki, who's a very successful author, investor, and is well known for his pieces on Rich Dad, Poor Dad and the Cash Flow Quadrant. If you haven't read those two books, or at least seen those reviews, I highly suggest you watch this before moving into this one. It will very much help you understand exactly what we're talking about. The best thing I like about this book is that rather than general self-help tips that you can actually apply to order, just become generally more successful, it gives you a direct business or idea of a business model that you can actually put your time, money, and invest into in order to actually start benefiting an income. Now, the first thing it talks about is understanding how money is made in the world and what wealth is in general. It talks about how majority of the world's worth, about 80% if not more, is owned by business owners and investors. Now, to explain that a little bit further, you do have to understand the cash flow quadrant. Now, the cash flow quadrant, it just identifies the two different types of incomes there are out there, an active income and a passive income. Over on the active side, it's all about trading your time for dollars. Here you have things like employees and self-employed. On the other side, you have basically business, so business owners and investors, right? Now, the difference between the two is that if you understand where it is that you want to be, you can figure out the types of income that you want to make. So for example, if you're someone who's an employee, you probably value security. You like to have money straight away, and therefore there's very little risk. Outside of like job security is a different thing, but in terms of your income, you know that you're going to get an instant return on the money that you're putting in. If you're self-employed, you more so value being your own boss, right? You like to be the best in your trade, right? Now those two things are awesome and they're fine if you want to be in, but in terms of creating wealth, they're not the two best options to be in. Over to the other side, on the passive side, you have a business owner and you have investors. If you're a business owner, you value wealth, not specifically time in terms of like the passive side, but you more so value money. You're more interested in creating a team of the best versus being one of the best, right? You care about the benefits of having more of an income coming in versus, the sort of ego whenever it comes to being self-employed and stuff like that. Now, if you're an investor, you value your time, you value wealth, you value making sure that you have freedom, financial freedom, you have control, and that's exactly what this business of the 21st century talks about. So the general question is, how is it that a person from the self-employed or the employee quadrant is actually supposed to, or the easiest way for them to move over to the passive side? Because the biggest problem that people run into, everybody loves real estate, everybody loves stocks and bonds. In fact, tell me one person who doesn't tell you it's a great idea to get into. And yet if you ask that person, especially if they're not already incredibly successful, well, why haven't you gone into it yet? Why haven't you gone into investments? The chances are they'll probably say, well, I'm just waiting for the right time. I don't have enough money at the moment. So how is it that a person who's self-employed or employed meant to move over into this passive quadrant, into the business or the investor quadrant? Well, that's exactly the benefit and the secret of the business of the 21st century. So basically, you need to understand where you're at, what it is that you want to accomplish. And the best thing about the business of the 21st century, it offers all these different assets. A lot of people talk about the first business that you want to go into as an investor is something that has low startup cost, but a high return. It's scalable, meaning that it's never actually restricted to employees' time. In fact, if you want to make out 1 million orders, you have the potential to give it 1 million orders. So that's one of the best and perfect business opportunities. The second part is that it's money that consistently comes in. Okay, you don't have to actively be there. You have an unlimited earning potential, but it's also passive, so the money keeps coming in. So what is this business that Robert Kiyosaki is talking about? Well, it's actually a business that was surprisingly created in the 20th century, but it's on its rise in the 21st. It's known as network marketing. Now, there's so many different benefits to it, but it's essentially you develop and create your own network of essentially people who are driven, and you create a team and you end up moving. It's all about sharing knowledge and developing the products with each other versus just selling it door to door or selling the products itself. It's one of the easiest things to get into and can be one of the cheapest things in order to basically return the largest cost of investment. And the best part about it, most of them, right, only take a little bit of your time. Now, the most powerful form of promotion whenever it comes into the marketing world or whenever it comes into the world of commerce is always going to be word of mouth. And the reason that is, especially nowadays, advertisements just don't have what the effectiveness of what it had back in the day. You see, the recommendation from a friend is always going to become more powerful than an advertisement you see anyway, especially nowadays. On average, it takes about 5,000 ads to have the same effect that it did 50 years ago. And the reason that is just because we're so saturated. It was believed that the attention span back in the day was 15 seconds. So we had a 15-second window right before we ended up getting bored. Now, especially with Instagram, Facebook, all these different social medias, if things don't catch our eye in about 7 seconds, right, we're switching over to the next one. So when it comes to advertisement, it's not necessarily redundant, but you do have to be ready to put forward a large amount of money in order to make sure you target your correct market and make sure that you do get a return on the money that you're putting in. If you put in too little, your ad won't be out there enough. enough. If you put in too much, you're probably going to end up costing a lot of money. So once again, it's talking about not having enough money to move into that traditional business or form of advertising. So what is the best way that we can basically utilize something that's cost effective, right, but has also the most effective, outreach towards your people? Well, it's word of mouth. If you can get people talking about certain things, certain aspects, certain products on their own will, because you do have a genuine product, or you do have a genuine team, you do have a genuine image, right? That's going to create a movement that people can buy into, that people can follow. It also talks about having loyalty. So sort of having why it is that you're doing something. When you're talking about your product, when you're talking about what it is that you have, you want to be able to understand why it is that you're trying to achieve. Right? What is the why of the business? What is the why of the company? Don't focus too much on the what or the how. So the what and the how basically means, what is it that you're doing? Okay? If you own shirts, right, the what is, hey, I have shirts. If you want them, you can buy them. That's the what. That's not going to get anyone to do anything. How? It's like, hey, we've created cotton-free shirts. They're a little bit better for the environment. If you want them, we're distributing it this way. That's how. That's a little bit more better, beneficial. But the why is all about why you're doing it. So why, for example, would be, we're creating a natural organic shirt. Okay, it has no animal harm at all. It's made 100% from cotton. In fact, it doesn't have any type of chemicals or anything like that, so you're getting the best health for your body. So what that ends up creating is a connection between the company and the consumers, and there's a level of loyalty that's created. That's also something that you can basically capitalize on, especially if you have a good product that you believe in. So it's important that what you're talking about, you're passionate, you're moving with it. Right? If you can, people want to buy more into the movement. Why is it, do you think, that Apple is such a large company, and yet it's not, technically speaking, has the highest specs or the best specs on their phones or their products? Well, the reason it has nothing to do with their research. It has everything to do with the image that it creates for yourselves. It created basically a level of sophistication, a level of, I'd argue even pretentiousness whenever it comes to that. People need to have the next thing, even though it's not technically the best devices on the planet, right? And that's what they've been able to do. They've had a solid why, a solid reason. They've been able to create a movement behind their brand, which is more important than the product itself. And if you can start to emulate that within your own business, or start look out towards the ones that are already existing, this is an awesome opportunity for you that you can take advantage in order to basically develop wealth. In terms of return, ROI and stuff like that, the average business, if you're looking towards starting one, it takes anywhere between, so not self-employed, the average business takes anywhere between 5 to 7 years before you become profitable. 5 to 7 years before you can become profitable, right? With a lot of network marketing businesses, you have the opportunity to create your own wealth, starting from something as little as maybe even $100 to even $5,000, but you're able to create a 6-figure, in some cases even 7 figures worth of income. So basically, whenever it comes to if you're out of options, you don't necessarily are in a financial position where you can make that risk, where you can put yourself in a large amount of investment debt, or at least willing to put your life savings on the line, this is the next best thing. The business of the 21st century, a lot of people getting into it. In fact, what I've noticed over the few years that I have been working in the industry, or at least been educated on it, it's almost becoming a little bit mainstream. People are understanding that being your own boss, creating wealth, looking towards creating your own financial security is something that should be valued, and it should be actually a human right. When it comes to making money, owning your income is the first step towards becoming financially free. So obviously you'd want to look towards the easiest, safest, best way in order to create that. And that's what Robert Kiyosaki talks about in the business of the 21st century. So, to summarize what it is that we've covered, the business of the 21st century, understand what it is that you're looking for out of an income, what it is that you're looking at out of life. If all you care about is being your own boss, perfect. Well, then just look towards becoming self-employed. If all you're caring about is security, you want a direct trade for the time that you're putting in, maybe you should stay an employee. But if you're looking towards creating wealth, creating freedom, owning your own income is going to be the first step towards doing that. You need to start looking towards thinking, how is it I'm going to start transitioning into the passive side of the quadrants? There's already so many benefits, not only from income and freedom, but also tax as well. As a self-employed or an employee, you may have only 2, maybe even 10, depending on how it is or what country that you're in. But as a business owner and investor, you have access to up to 20 tax breaks, which obviously opens you up more reasons in order to essentially create more wealth for you. All right. Understand your values, understand where you want to be, and then therefore from there you can start to make a decision. When it comes to moving into the world of business, you always want to do the safest option first, right? Stay in something, get educated on it, and then start moving up from there. Every single successful person took a genuine niche, got incredibly good at it, before they started expanding their horizons and making their money work. The average millionaire has 7 different income streams, but when they started, they would have started with one, created a solid foundation. And the best place to do that, at least in my personal opinion, would be the business of the 21st century. So I highly suggest you read the book, but that's pretty much all it is for Quick Notes with Chris. We're going to have a lot more videos coming up on the channel, so don't just stop there in terms of your personal improvement and putting yourself in a better position for success. I should be uploading a few more videos over the next coming weeks, so keep an eye out for them. But other than that, guys, I'll see you in the next one.